The Assembly will hear an address by His Excellency João Manuel Gonçalves Lourenço, President of the Republic of Angola. I request the protocol to escort His Excellency. On behalf of the General Assembly, have the honor to welcome to the United Nations His Excellency João Manuel Gonçalves Lourenço, President of the Republic of Angola, and to invite him to address the Assembly.
Excellency.
Your Excellency, Mr. Abdullah Shahid, President of the 76th Session of the United Nations General Assembly, Heads of State and Government, Mr. Secretary General of the United Nations, ladies and gentlemen. The fact that I can be on this podium to congratulate you in person on your election is a sign of progress in how we are dealing with the COVID-19 virus. We have not yet won the battle against the SARS-CoV-2 virus, but must note that we are overcoming the fears, uncertainties, and the feeling of powerlessness of a year ago, and gradually returning to normal life with all the necessary precautions and a sense of responsibility that is required from all of us. The fight against COVID-19 and its new and frightening variants goes on, and only our combined efforts, without distinctions between rich and poor or based on other types of social categories, is the only way forward for us to fight this pandemic with outcomes that meet our population's expectations of a full return to normal life. We have seen an increased global conviction that the possibility of achieving this goal is real, as vaccines are developed and introduced by the international scientific community with admirable and commendable speed, with the larger purpose of preserving the human species, which is threatened by the COVID-19 pandemic. It is therefore urgent that we establish, in practical terms, a general understanding that solidarity and streamlined procedures to access vaccines are the only way to lead the world to victory in the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic, with the broadest possible immunization of the inhabitants of our planet. It is shocking to see the disparity between some nations and others with respect to availability of vaccines. These disparities allow for third doses to be given in some cases, while in other cases, as in Africa, the vast majority of the population has not even received the first dose. The United Nations must discuss and adopt decisions that are favorable toward the release of vaccine production patents, so that they may be produced for an even larger number of countries, making them more accessible to all. The pandemic that we face is global in nature and thus accentuated the link and interdependence among nations. For this reason, the COVID-19 vaccine must be recognized as a good for all community, with universal and open access to allow for wider production and equitable distribution on a global scale. Excellencies, all negative effects and consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic in other places also had a strong impact on the economic and social life in the Republic of Angola. Nonetheless, we were able to act quickly, aggressively, and decisively to contain the spread of the contamination on a scale that allowed us to keep the levels of contagion within the limits of our health structures response capacity. Yet, an assessment of losses resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic to our national economy provides us with distressing results for which we are now seeking solutions to help mitigate them and relieve the suffering of our population. We have relied on the support and efforts that merit our full appreciation as they provide us with some measure of relief in terms of our financial responsibilities toward our creditors. This allows us to have some capacity to tend to our enormous and multiple needs. In this context of significant degradation in the living conditions of our population and our economic and social fabric, we must engage in deep reflection to find long-lasting solutions that may serve as the basis for rebuilding our economies, which have suffered the most severe impacts from this worldwide health crisis. Excellencies, the Republic of Angola has made major efforts to contribute to peace and stability in Central Africa, in the Great Lakes region, and other parts of our continent. Our sensitivity with respect to issues of peace and war is the result of our long internal conflict that lasted for several decades, which gives us a clear perspective on the importance of seeking solutions for disputes through dialogue and understanding between conflicting parties. We have sought to share our successful Angolan experience with other nations, with the conviction that our action, if well understood, will surely lead to favorable outcomes in ending conflicts and re-establishing peace in some of the affected African countries. There still remain several conflicts in different regions of our planet. There seems to be no end in sight for some of them, due not only to the complex nature of their causes, but above all due to non-compliance with the norms that govern international relations and with the principles of peaceful coexistence among peoples and nations. We must continue to believe in the mechanisms that are available to the United Nations to build a framework of multilateralism, solutions that ensure solid and long-lasting world peace and security. We are particularly concerned with the changes in institutional order that are occurring frequently through the use of military force in African countries, as these unconstitutional acts have not spurred an appropriate and sufficient reaction from the international community to discourage such acts, which are reprehensible in every aspect, as we have seen in Mali and more recently in Guinea. Therefore, we consider it necessary that the international community act with resolve and does not simply issue statements of condemnation in order to force those actors to return power to the legitimately established institutions. We cannot continue to allow recent examples, such as those of Guinea and others, to succeed in Africa and other continents. This is a great opportunity for the heads of state and government gathered here to demand with a single voice the immediate and unconditional release of the President of the Republic of Guinea, Professor Alpha Condé. We are concerned with the threats to world peace and security from the actions of extremist groups in the African Sahel, in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, in Mozambique, and in other parts of the world, which require the continuous mobilization of the international community to strengthen our capacity to respond to these dangerous activities against social and economic stability in those countries. Unfortunately, we have been seeing a return to the use of mercenaries with the recruitment from anywhere in the world of professionals without armies, paid to kill, to destabilize countries, to oust democratically elected but troublesome politicians and regimes. This phenomenon used to be strongly condemned and fought, but unfortunately it is now encouraged and fed by powerful forces hiding behind anonymity. The United Nations, the African Union, and in general the international community must encourage the Ethiopian authorities to find better ways to put an end to the conflict in the Tigray region and counter the threat of a humanitarian catastrophe before it becomes more serious and too late. Climate change is in today's agenda, judging from the grave consequences that humanity is facing in all continents. The frequency and ferocity of hurricanes, floods, forest fires, landslides, volcano eruptions, and earthquakes that devastate entire cities and population centers in rural areas, sometimes with a significant toll of deaths, should draw everyone's attention from governments, non-governmental organizations, the academy, scientists, civil society, to the need for concerted efforts to protect planet Earth, our common home, which has been giving us increasingly clear signals that she is not happy with how we treat her and is defending herself in the most violent manner possible. Thank you very much for your attention.
On behalf of the General Assembly, I wish to thank the President of the Republic of Angola for the statement just made, and I request protocol to escort His Excellency. I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Burkina Faso,